Tens of thousands of homeowners are being urged to start repaying their loans as a March 31st deadline on automatic mortgage holidays approaches. The economic impact of coronavirus saw banks offer homeowners loan deferrals last year. About 10% of borrowers accepted and paused their payments. But as that program comes to an end, it sparked calls for more social housing to prevent a surge in homelessness. For more on this, I'm joined now by Kate Colvin, the national spokesperson for the Everybody's Home campaign and manager at the Council to Homeless Persons. Kate, appreciate your time. The banks are essentially putting mortgage holders on notice here. The pause they'd allowed in those repayments is coming to an end. What is your expectation as to how that will play out? Will there be a significant number of Australians who simply won't be able to resume those repayments? Are we going to see Australians losing their homes?
Look, it's very tough for families who have not been able to get back into work, and we know that we've still got very high unemployment. The economy is bouncing back very slowly. That when they have to start repaying their mortgage again, many families will just not be able to do that. And of course, they might then have to sell their property into a market where it's worth less than it was when they bought it, and that'll put them in hardship. And at the same time, we've got JobKeeper rolling back. If people are forced onto the job seeker payment, we know on that payment that people can't manage in the private rental market. And so one thing and another, that means if they can't manage, they can't pay the rent, don't have enough income, they will experience homelessness.
More broadly, was there a significant increase in demand for homelessness services throughout the pandemic? Have we really seen that in the past year or so?
Look, yes, there was, and state governments really stepped up, many of them, during the pandemic and provided hotel accommodation for people who were homeless to protect people's health. But one of the challenges as the pandemic has come to an end is that there's just not been the long-term housing for people. So very sadly, in many states, people have gone from that hotel accommodation and had to go back to homelessness. So one of the things that we're calling for is more social housing. So that would mean that people who have experienced homelessness as a consequence of the pandemic and are struggling would have a home to go to, and also people who are becoming homeless now because of the mortgage holidays ending. And of course, over the course of this year, with unemployment still high and job seeker payments reducing, we do expect a surge in homelessness. So having housing that's there as an alternative, it just helps families move on. With a home, of course, you can, do all the ordinary things in life. You can participate in work and employment. It's very difficult to do that when you're homeless.
You mentioned how the states have been performing. Have some states been better than others? I know that Victoria in particular had a program that has been applauded.
Certainly in Victoria, the government did put a large number of people into hotel accommodation. We saw that to a lesser degree, but still happening in New South Wales, in South Australia, and in Queensland. Happened far less, I have to say, in WA and Tasmania. So it has been a bit of a mixed bag, but one of the things, I guess, that it has been better about what's happened in Victoria is that long-term accommodation has been offered. So many people who are in hotel accommodation have been now able to move into longer-term accommodation, and the state government's made a big commitment to building more social housing. But it won't meet the whole need, and that's where, I guess, the federal government comes in, because the states can't carry the whole burden, and the federal government really has the fiscal firepower. And one of the things that's so fantastic about building social housing, if they were to do it nationwide, is, of course, it creates thousands of jobs. Building homes is something you can only do with domestic labour, and we know that every dollar that you spend on building social housing generates $1.30 in growth in GDP. So while the economy's struggling, what a fantastic way to get people working and to get homes delivered to people who really urgently need them, both at the same time.
Well, there was a $1 billion boost, wasn't there, in the last federal budget for low-cost finance, the aim being to increase the availability of affordable housing. That sounds like a pretty significant investment to most of us. Did that make a real dent in the problem or not?
Look, what the federal government has done with that is that's loans. So that's money that's going through the NIFIC, the National Housing and Finance Investment Corporation, to loan at a slightly discounted rate to community housing providers so that they can build more social housing. So it does make a difference. It is a good commitment, but it doesn't bridge the gap between what it costs to build social housing and provide homes to people on the lowest incomes and what those households can afford to pay in rent. So we've had study after study. The federal government itself have done studies that have shown that to build that housing, you really do need the federal government to plug that gap so that there's community housing providers can get out there and build those homes. And in fact, one of the things for the economy at the moment is community housing providers have, 10,000 projects that are shovel ready to go. If the federal government was to make that commitment, there'd be people pulling on their hard hats and getting out to work, within months, jobs created pretty much straight away.
Yeah, it's just one of many challenges facing our governments at state and federal level this year. Kate Colvin, appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.